and we can keep chatting amongst ourselves. So I know Jake's jumping on here in a minute as he gets ready. This is going to be a fun night, you guys. I'm looking forward to I don't get to see, the jump shot team doesn't get to see each other every day. And especially now that we're done, we're all spread out again.
Yeah.
So,
no, but lately we get to feel each other every day.
That's true. That's true. And today's been wild. I mean, and yesterday and the day before, the amount of people that are sharing the love, from basketball fans to players to parents, to grandparents to great grandparents. I mean, this is pretty incredible.
Yes. It made it wild. Are we supposed to talk? Are you going to like take us further into what made it wild?
Oh yeah, I'm going to take us further in about a minute. We're going to wait for some people to join us. I don't know, man. I've got my prayers up that the NBA on TNT crew's paying attention right now, since they've been sharing about the film like crazy.
It's amazing.
I'm glad you're monitoring those fun people.
Yeah, we got 50 people here right now. We're going to start in about a minute or two as we wait for more people to join us in our after party right now. We've got producers, friends on the screen. And just so that people know that are actually joining the party, our team will be live on camera on the screen, but all the guests will be joining via chat. Because I know some people are asking if they can hear us. We probably won't be able to hear you because only our team will be on the screen talking, but we will be taking your questions in the chat panel. So you can, as we're talking and something pops into your head, feel free to throw something out there to us, because we'd love to answer your questions. So love it. Dominican College women's basketball team is on here right now.
Yes.
There we go. There we go.
That's Rockland County, New York. Is that right?
Kyle Jarrett. Oh, Wyoming's in the house.
There we go.
Al Simpson's daughter-in-law.
Really?
Al can join us.
Oh man.
Amazing.
He has. Oh, those guys. I love getting to sit with them. They were fun.
That's incredible.
There's Louie. What's up, Louie?
Louis.
Pretty fun. Well, let me go ahead and just, before we get rolling, one thing I want to do that's really important is I really want to thank our partners for Jump Shot. Aspiration Entertainment out of Nashville has just been absolutely incredible to work with. And we'll kind of talk about how we found them and how they found us later on tonight. But Unanimous Media, which is Steph Curry's entertainment company. We just want to thank them, Eric and Jerron and the team at Unanimous, for being a part of the Jump Shot film. We also have Altavad, who has, gone above and beyond to provide a platform for Jump Shot to actually show on. We can't thank them enough, and we're going to talk about them in a second. And then our partners, Convoy of Hope, that we are donating 10% of proceeds to from our 4-day premiere now online. Their goal is to feed 10 million meals to families that are affected by the pandemic right now, and that is pretty stinking incredible. So thank you all for being a part of this film and helping us give money back to them as well to help during this crisis. I'm going to go ahead and intro people on the screen real quick for you out there that are watching, and then we're going to jump into talking about the film. So right up here next to me, we have Mary Beth Menace. If you wave, Mary Beth, she is an executive producer and producer on the film and a literal all-star in the film production world. We're going to tell some stories about Mary Beth and our buddy down here, Coach Mo, in a minute. But Mary Beth is here with us. My name is Ty Nathan Clark, and I'm a producer on the film as well. Next to me, we've got Jacob Hamilton, who is our fearless leader and director who found this project. And we'll talk with Jake a lot. Below Mary Beth, we have Russell Groves, who is a producer on the film and has been with the film the longest with Jacob, right here on this screen. And wow, I can't even tell you how incredible this guy is. And then below me is Coach Mo, who runs AIA Basketball, Athletes in Action. And he is also the team chaplain for USA Basketball. got some insane stories coming from Coach Mo and Mary Beth later tonight. We have Melissa Noggenbauer below Jake, who is an executive producer on the film, who has been, I can't even tell you how incredible this lady has been as a connector, as a friend, and just as a warrior for the film. We're excited to have her on the call. And then in our bottom corner, we have Mr. David Goldberg, who is a star in the film. That really, we used David Goldberg's interview to kind of shape our film because we had no idea what we were stepping into when we met this guy. He is just phenomenal, and he's an associate producer on the film. We also on the call have Eric Locusmo, who you'll see a little later, possibly his face, and Andy Peterson and Andrea Ames, who are part of the Aspiration team. But anyways, that is the team that is here with you tonight. And we are so excited to have Alaska joining us, Wyoming, New York. I know we possibly have some people from Mexico and from Spain and other parts of the world on tonight too. So to get started, I want to lead this question to Jay. This is a big question we're getting asked a lot right now. And it is, why did you guys decide to premiere online? In a format that we're not familiar with. So there's a lot that went into us because some things happened to us along the road that weren't expected. And so I'm going to let Jake go ahead and share with you, and Russell will probably add a little bit too, is why in the world did we decide to premiere this film online?
Well, the short answer is there's a global crisis going on. We had everything lined up to be in over 250 theaters on April 2nd. We were stoked to have a theatrical release and get to pack out theaters across the country. And, I think, what was it, like up until 10 days, maybe before April 2nd, we thought that we were still going to be doing that release. And then all of a sudden that changed when we got word that theaters were shutting down. And we obviously wanted to respect that. And there was nothing we could do to change it anyways. And luckily, we had an amazing plan that we were able to implement very quickly to get the film out there. And that is through the platform Altivod, which I know Russell could probably share a little bit more about. But before he does that, I just as a filmmaker, this is an absolute incredible resource for independent film, because prior to this, we would have been left with really no way for us to be able to get the film out to audiences like we are and engaging with everybody like you that's listening to this right now. And so, I mean, this really is something else that is absolutely incredible, that gives us this opportunity to have made the quick pivot that we did and get the film out there. And so, Russ, I don't know if you want to share anything else about Altivod. That's my perspective, just
Russ,
as being an independent filmmaker.
Russ, as somebody who's very involved in the film industry and making numerous films, like, how normal or odd is this?
I mean, let's face it, we're literally in unprecedented times across every, whether you're in your personal life to your business life, whatever. Like, I think that's the interesting part, is like, we're all experiencing some kind of interesting difficulty, a lot of cons. And I think that just generally what we had was we kind of got served a bad hand. And I think that where we're at right now is that we have an opportunity to take something out into a medium that isn't your standard medium for a release, most certainly not your initial release. And partnering with Altivod was this really big cure to at least kind of give us the ability to reach some audiences. And I think that just as we've seen, we've had a lot of interest, success. So tons of people coming out in droves that are just loving the film. And I can't thank the Altivod team enough. I can't thank our own team enough for saying, you know what, let's take the chance here to see what's going to happen. And it's been very successful. And I think that we've turned lemons into lemonade, and let's see where it goes from here. I think that this is just the beginning.
So as Russell said, it is just the beginning, and there's some pretty fascinating and extremely fun stories that have gotten us to where we are today. And I think probably the one that is the most fun to share, and is probably the biggest question we've gotten whenever we've done interviews or talked to other people or had an audience at a film festival, is how in the world did you get Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, and Dirk Nowitzki to be a part of your film? I mean, this is one of my nephew's favorite stories. My nephew, I remember when we got back from interviewing Kevin Durant, he was just, I mean, he's a huge Steph Curry and KD fan. I mean, bigger than life, those guys. I mean, I am myself. So to lead it up, for about 3 years, I was working my tail off to try and get big time NBA players to be a part of the film. And I was having no luck. Well, we, in a very miraculous way, ended up bringing Mary Beth Minnis into the project. And she and Jake, our director, have worked on multiple projects in film before. So Mary Beth comes on and ends up sharing this film. And Coach Mo ends up getting wind of it. And I'm going to let Mary Beth take it from here so that Coach Mo can jump in as well. Because Mary Beth, you present the film to Coach Mo. And then Coach Mo does some things that end up bringing the whole film into the picture.
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the people that I work with connected me with Coach Mo when I shared with them that I'd been praying for these guys to get involved, Kevin Durant and Steph Curry and several others, and got the opportunity to meet Coach Mo and show him the film. And Coach, I'll let you take it from there.
That's Mary Beth. That's way too vanilla. An intro. You know, the fact of the matter is, Mary Beth, that you just emailed the president of Athletes in Action, and you said, I'm working on this sports documentary, and I don't know, is there anybody in your organization that might be interested in it? And that was vanilla. I mean, pure vanilla. And then, and so I get the email forwarded to me in June of 2017, your little cute email. And he just says, fellas, there was a couple of us on the email. I don't know what to do with this. Are any of you interested? And I had no idea exactly what this was. And I let the email sit for, I don't know, a day or two, thinking, I don't know what this means. And I think your prayers, started to germinate or hatch something, because I called you back and you didn't give me a whole lot more other than say, hey, I'm going to Colorado, Fort Collins, Colorado next month. How about if I show you what we've done so far? And so I met you at an Airbnb in Fort Collins, Colorado, and I watched this, the stuff that Jake and David Goldberg, those people had put together, and I looked at that thing and I just took like crazy notes, and it was a struggle because I had tears in my eyes numerous times, and then I said, can we just talk about this? And can I just tell you what I'm thinking? I brought 2 high school kids with me. They were basketball players and one of my colleagues. And we sat down, and I don't know, the movie's like 78 minutes and 39 seconds or something. And
might have been 100
for about that point 3 hours. And all the rest of it was the debrief, and said, well, this is too good not to keep going. And I want to help you, and I want you to listen to me, and I want to listen to you. And then let's just pray. And we did all of those things, and it was late that night, and we left your little Airbnb, and within, I was deeply moved. And since I just said, let's see what we can do to get a whole nother level of people in the contemporary world that are doing basketball, and then see what they think. And so
sent it to 2 guys specifically.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
And no, you're good. And then their response was,
well, I mean, it was priceless, because we took the film to KD's house, and Jake and Mary Beth and Ty, you were there with me, and we tried to put it up on the big screen, and in his house, and it didn't work. So we just sat out on his back porch on a table with a laptop and huddled around a laptop and gave him the best seat. And it was under the stars. It was a beautiful night overlooking the bay. And so he just watches this thing. And there was a great moment. I thought, you know what, I think, God, you're doing something here, because about halfway through, I turned to my right because Kevin was to my right, and I looked, and oh my goodness, there are tears that are flying down his left cheek. I couldn't see his right cheek, but I said, I think this guy's feeling something here. And at the end of the movie, with no comments from any of you guys on the screen, he just turned and he said, I want to be in this thing. And I mean, that's a little extraordinary to have something like that happen. Like he invited himself into the movie before we even had a chance to do it. Am I right?
Yeah,
It's true.
Jake, share your, as a filmmaker, share your experience with having to show one of the largest basketball players in the world your film on a laptop outside.
So yeah, that was one of those moments where what you just described, Coach, it sounds all rosy and everything's perfect. That's my dog barking right now because he just ate and he gets riled up. So my experience as the director is we're hanging out at KD's house and he's like, and we're on his back porch and he's like, let's watch it. And I'm like, okay, like there's a big screen TV there. Let's go watch it. And he's like, no, let's watch it right here on the back porch. And I'm like, on my laptop? He's like, yeah, on your laptop. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we're getting ready to watch a movie on my laptop in a backyard. Like, and I think I'm just kind of waiting for the point for him to pause the movie and say, all right. And actually he does. At one point in time, he pauses the movie and he's like, hold on, can I stop this? And I was like, oh, here we go. Like he's going to close the laptop and say, thanks guys. This is really cool. You can go along your way. He looks at us. He's like, can I rewind that and look at what Kenny just did again? Because he was watching Kenny and doing some skill on the court. And he was like, I was working on that at practice this week. He's like, this is unbelievable that Kenny was doing this like 60, 70 years ago. Right. And then we started watching the film again. And I mean, there was every distraction under the sun, from like planes flying over, friends passing by. It was like, to me, it was a nightmare. I was like, there's no way this is going to work out well. And I think that really just goes to show that there was someone bigger than us involved in that night and working on Kevin's heart for him to be able to hop on this project the way he did, because I fumbled over all my words trying to communicate to him at the beginning of why we thought it'd be really cool to show this film. And I was like, I just botched this. So yeah, that's my perspective, and it all turned out great, but not by my hands. So
yeah, I remember I was so nervous the entire time. I was almost shaking, and I was sitting right next to him. But eventually I kind of calmed down a little bit because I could tell he was starting to warm up to it. And I remember kind of nudging him at one point when Kenny started talking about the women that he coached. And I said, this is my favorite part. And he said to me, this is my favorite part too. And I just like, my heart was won in that moment. And then to hear his reaction afterwards, like just how thoughtful, how kind, how humble, how he just was in awe of Kenny and was trying to learn from Kenny, just really blew me away. I mean, I'd only known who Kevin Durant was from the media, but meeting him up close, I just gained an incredible amount of respect for him. And then the way he interviewed and the way he talked about Kenny, I just think he's like the next best thing to Kenny in the film. So can't say enough great things about KD.
Yeah. It was really, can I just sneak this in? What's interesting is when we went that day, remember we tried to go a little earlier and we couldn't get to his house.
Forest fires.
Right.
There was forest fires, and they had just closed off the road in that whole area, and we're just in this holding pattern. Like he says, yeah, why don't we just, meet at my house? And then we couldn't get there. And he said, and we had no idea when everything would open up, and it ended up with a perfect night under the stars, and he was locked in no matter how many distractions were going on.
Let it not be lost as well that Coach Mo, you flew across the country what, 2 days after having ACL surgery, which your doctor recommended you not do. But you still came to make that happen. So, I mean, you're a trooper, man. We love you so much.
Hey, Jake, can I add something to what Mary Beth said?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
My 18-year-old daughter saw the film for the first time last night, and she came in, we were talking later, and she said, you know what? After Kenny, I really thought Kevin Durant was the best thing in it. I said to her, you know, I was in it, but she, but she even, Mary Beth, she even tweeted out to him today to just thank him and said my dad was in the film. So I think we all thought that. KD was just so sincere. I mean, everybody was terrific, but he really came off as so sincere.
Yeah.
I think to add to that point, I mean, we have a few producers on the film, the Munson brothers in Oklahoma, who are season ticket holders with Oklahoma City.
Ooh.
And they're massive Oklahoma City fans. And the time they watched the first cut with KD, I remember Drew, I think it was Drew that said, dang it, you guys made me like KD again. Because obviously he was a little frustrated. And he said, you know, that's the KD that we all knew in Oklahoma and that we all loved. And I think you get to truly see the spirit of an absolutely beautiful soul in the film that Kevin Durant is. And I think we don't get to see that too often because the media likes to find bad guys and stick with those things. And I'm glad that we got to truly show, you know, who KD really is and what his heart's really like. And I think it was such an asset to the film. And so to jump to Steph, you know, we thought we might get an interview that same week with Steph Curry. And you know, when you're working in the big NBA world, like guys' schedules are, you guys don't even understand how insane schedules are for people. And we're teeny little documentary filmmakers being patient and hoping things work out. And we didn't get to interview him, but Coach Mo got to go and hang out with Steph during shooting practice one day. And Steph told Coach, hey, we're flying to China tomorrow. I'm going to watch the film on the flight to China. And so after he watched the film, he gets with Coach and he's basically like, man, what do I need to do? Yeah, I'd love to be a part of this. What do I need to do? So Jake and Mary Beth and I flew to Boston, right? Is it Boston?
Well,
or what?
We're leading up to
meeting him
for Steph's interview. Yeah, his schedule was so busy.
Yeah,
we had to catch him mid-season.
Yeah, we had to wait for a while. They had a game against the Celtics. We flew to Boston, got to interview him. And he had so much fun in the interview, like KD, that he ended up going to his team, and his team reached out to us and said, hey, is there a way for us to be more of a part of this? And that's when we brought Steph on to be an executive producer and for Unanimous to be a part of the film. And I think this goes to show like just how really important and how beautiful building real relationships are in life as well, because you know Coach Mo doesn't get to spend that much time with these guys. Like when he's a part of USA Basketball, he gets to spend time with these guys in person here and there, and then throughout the seasons in that separation, it's that text message, hang out when you get a chance. And I think showing how incredible Coach Mo is, and for all of us as people, how important intentional relationships are with people lead to people realizing how much you love them in a society in a day where love and friendship is really hard to truly form. And I think that's something that's really beautiful about Kenny's life, because that's one of Kenny's main characteristics is he invested in people. I mean, we have people on the chat that are like, I met Kenny when I was in 8th grade. I met him when I was in high school once. And he loved them so much in that moment that they feel like he was their grandfather or that close to him. And I want to lead that up to David, because David, you got to talk to Kenny, and he left such an impression on you years ago. And that's how we got connected, through Kenny's friends. And so tell us your experience with you meeting Kenny.
Yeah, well, I was working on a book on the early days of professional basketball, and I was jumping all over the country, talking to a lot of guys who are better known than Kenny, and a little more modern, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Oscar Robertson and Willis Reed and people of that ilk. And somewhere in there, when I was a kid, Ty, I had gotten my dad had gone to a Final Four and come home with the program. And then I'm old enough that this was pre-internet days, and this program that listed every previous Final Four in it was gold to a young guy who's a basketball fan. And I just went over it and over it and over it, and I had recalled the 43 thing. So the name was stuck in my head, but that's all it was a one page of this program from my youth. But in working on this book, Kenny's name popped back into my head. I'm the heathen on this call, but I like to think of it as divine intervention anyway. But I reached out to Tim Harkins at Wyoming. Said, does anybody know where this guy is? He said, well, he's behind the Hungry Howie's Pizza. He's living in the parking lot right by the gym. And I called Kenny one night, and I swear to you, it was like he was expecting my call. And I was saying to somebody, he had sort of that. People talked about Will Rogers. There were friends and friends I haven't met yet. And I think that's what Kenny had. And when I went out and spent a full day, I had come from Kareem. I was in LA with Kareem. I called Kenny and I said, I'm in LA. I got to fly back to New York. I can stop in Denver and drive over. I didn't realize what a production that is. But I did it, and I knocked on Kenny's door, and it's just like you ever just, you meet somebody and you say, this is destiny. This is meant to happen. This is a connection. I look at the film, Ty, because I kept in touch with Kenny after that, but I look at the film, and with no disrespect to any of us on this call, I like to think that Kenny EP'd this film. I like to think the whole thing was done in his spirit. And I think one of you guys used the word intentional recently, and I think that was very intentional. I'm looking at the faces on this screen, and I think Kenny would have been so proud of everybody. I think one person is as good as the next. And to those of us who've been involved in television and film at any level, there's a lot of productions that end without a lot of love in them, and with a lot of fingers pointing. And I think this is the opposite. And I really like to think that comes down from who Kenny was. And I said to somebody, it's one thing to edit a film, but you could have spent 78 minutes, any 78 minutes of Kenny's life, and gotten that same guy, because that's who he was. So he had a huge impact on me, Ty. You couldn't have been more correct.
I want to pass that same question on over to Melissa, because Melissa, you came on as an executive producer. Was it 2 years ago now, or was it 3? I think you're muted, just so you know. So I think you came on 2 years ago. All right, you're good. And so, being a part of the film as an executive producer, where you're not really involved in, the day-to-day of the film, but you're really staying tight with Mary Beth on everything that's going on, but you're still a very huge part of this story and our journey and what we created. So how has that been an impact? How did Kenny's story and being a part of this impact you?
Wow, thank you. I have loved my friend Mary Beth for a long time, and I have loved the work that she's done, because the films that she has worked on have been impactful films about real people who have made a difference in the world. And Kenny is one of those guys. He, huge personality, and did so much, but lived a humble life of faith. And his Final Four, it's thought-provoking, the film, and it makes people reflect on their own lives and ponder what their own legacy will be. And I always put things in my own family's frame of reference. What do I want my 2 young men, boys, my children that are young men now, what kind of films do I want them to see of people that they might emulate? And Kenny Sellers was one of them. And we watched it as a family for the first time last night, and they loved it. They loved it. There was every emotion under the sun. And we had good family conversation after about a life well lived and what that looks like, what that means to the future generations. And so that's why I was so excited to get to be a part when Mary Beth asked me to get to be a part of this beautiful documentary. And also you guys, Jake and Ty and Russell and Coach Mo, having met you, just to be part of a team of really positive, caring, real people that believe in their work and believe in the stories that they're telling, that's huge. I loved it. I've enjoyed it.
But I love what you said about this film being something for just incredible family discussions. And I think, that's something that's really at the core and the heart of our team as well, is that, Kenny's story is something that not only should teams and coaches and teachers use as a discussion, but I think this is something that's great for families, for sons and daughters with their moms, their dads, or their moms and their dads together. There's so many themes throughout this film that are so learnable for younger generations moving forward. And I think pretty soon we might have one of Kenny Saylor's family joining us on the screen. So that would be really exciting. But before we move into that, I really want to kind of set up, we have Jake and Russell here, who obviously Jake found the story and had the courage enough to go, oh my gosh, I want to make a film about this guy because there's something here that is really different. And Jake, I want you to bring Russell into this conversation because you've worked with Russell before, but you also needed to find a producer or somebody to make this film with you. So take me through just a little bit quickly how you kind of found the story, came up with this idea, and then how you pitched to Russell. And Russell, I want to know kind of when you came in, how you responded to Jake in this situation and then jumped into the story and what that went through as well.
So I first came across Kenny's story in 2011. It was a 2-minute audio interview. For those of you who are familiar with a program that's featured on NPR every once in a while, it's called StoryCorps. Somebody had done an interview with Kenny, and it was very short, brief story, but immediately grabbed my attention. And was searching for documentary ideas and decided that I would maybe look into seeing if this is something that I could do. I was a cinematographer and was always behind the camera and hadn't directed anything yet. And I was like, maybe this could be the first documentary I get to direct. And that was just a short film. And because I wasn't ready to jump into the deep end of directing a feature-length documentary at that time. And so we completed the short film. And it was at that point in time where I really did feel like we had something that could grow into a feature-length film about Kenny's life. But I had no idea how in the world I was going to be able to pull that off. And I was actually working on a film, another documentary called Lord Montague at the time with Russell. Russell was a producer on it. I was their cinematographer. And I just approached Russ. I was like, hey man, I have this story that, I think there's legs here to do something great with it, but I can't do it by myself. And I need somebody with your skill and expertise to kind of help me, just get this off the ground. And so, and that was probably early 2012.
It was 2012, I think. I was trying to go back and think about that the other day. I was just like, how long has this been going on? I mean, heck, Jake, I think that since 2011 or 2010 maybe is when you were doing some of that stuff. But yeah, you came in, you sent the short first, if I recall, and then I think you sent the short to me, to Andrew Lee, and maybe to Dave and Bradley. Because that's all the company is, Rafe Smith Entertainment. But and I want to make sure that I'm plugging them too, because Dave and Andrew were big contributors. Bradley didn't do anything on this.
Nothing. He's the worst.
And so if he's watching this right now, you don't deserve any credit at all. I'm just playing. But anyway, so whenever we saw the short, it was really it was very compelling. And I think that that's the thing about documentaries. Especially at that time, we were on the precipice. It was kind of before docs became a thing. It was kind of at that moment in time where you could really dive off into some great storytelling with some biographical, very interesting people, but there really wasn't a huge platform for them yet. and there wasn't like a huge marketplace for them yet. So we were trying to skin that in a very interesting way. But whenever we saw the short film, it was like, this is it. There's much more to this story that we need to dive off into. And then obviously we leapt off into a very long excursion that has netted some wonderful relationships and some great, amazing things along the way. And it's been a wonderful journey with you.
In fact, you and I have worked on a whole nother documentary from beginning to end during that time period as well.
Exactly. So, I mean, we were battle hardened already. So I think that we were ready to go back into battle, which was nice.
Yeah.
So, and I you know, it's been an amazing journey to kind of see you transition from a cinematographer to a creator. So you should feel very proud about that.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Love you, brother.
Love you too.
I'm going to go ahead and answer a question from Clay Taylor, Jake, that I think this is a great one for you to answer. And I know this is something that definitely affected all of us, but more for Jake, because Jake built a really sincere relationship with Kenny more than any of us, because some of us didn't get the chance to meet Kenny personally. Others got the chance to meet Kenny personally. So this question from Clay says, how did you manage the emotional aspects of creating this film, especially towards the end? Because, you know, we lost, I think, 6 people in the cast total with through the completion of this project. I mean, there's some beautiful, beautiful souls in this film that there's some of us that we're very close to and others that we just interviewed that we lost while we were making this film, which is really difficult when you're making a film about somebody that is further back in history or older in age. Is you're going to deal with either losing people after you interview them because they're older generations, or not even being able to find people to interview. But I think this is a great question, Jake. So how did you manage the emotional aspects, especially towards the end?
Yeah, that's a great question, Clay. It was tough because, I mean, we knew that Kenny was not doing well at a certain point in time. Kenny actually had a heart attack, survived the heart attack, and then it was a couple weeks later that he ended up passing. And so we knew the end was near. I was able to begin to prepare myself for the fact that he was probably not going to be with us much longer. I think what was really unique and what's interesting about the scenario that I was in was I was having to, like, we went to, for example, the memorial service. We captured Kenny's memorial service at the Arena Auditorium in Laramie. I was there for a production to capture a moment of a friend. And so emotionally, I was wanting to mourn the loss of my friend, but at the same time, I was still having to like guide the ship of, hey, we've got to get these moments, these scenes, these locations and people and whatnot to still capture a scene out of it. So I was having to jump back and forth between that, which was really hard because I really just wanted to be there emotionally. I wanted to see people and connect with people, but I also had to, you know, kind of remove myself from it to be able to get to, you know, make sure we got what we needed. And on top of that, I mean, that was in 2016. And honestly, we were editing all the way up until late 2018. Is that right? Yeah. And I spent every day in front of a computer editing Kenny, like looking at footage with Kenny, spending time with my friend every day. So like in a strange way, I mean, I got to spend more and more time with him even after he was gone. And it's very unique because most people don't get to do that, but I literally was looking at his face for 2 years after he passed away and getting to hear new stories and you know, we'd find some new thing in an archive video or a transcript from an audio that was done, you know, an interview that was done like 20 years ago in Alaska or something. And so yeah, it was a whole bunch of emotions. That's kind of the sum of it, I guess. But yeah,
Jake, I'm going to add something to that. I think what's interesting is a lot of documentarians, they tend to stay on the edges and don't get involved with the subject sometimes. And, or at least that used to be the old tried and true thought about documentarian. It's like, you just kind of stay in the wings and you're a fly on the wall. I think that this movie is better because of your relationship with him. And I think it's better. I think it shows the humanity in it. I talked to my dad about this today. He and I were just talking about what Kenny means to him. And he is truly the definition of Americana. If there's one thing that Kenny Sailors is, he is the true testament of Americana. So I think that you captured it so very well.
Thank you.
I think that's an awesome point, Russell. And I know, we've showed this film to, there isn't a generation, I feel like, that's alive in America that that we haven't screened it for, or that hasn't been able to sit and watch it. We had a video last night, I think it was on Twitter, where a 6-year-old watched the film with the family, and the first thing he did while watching the film was run and grab a basketball and start practicing a jump shot on the little toy hoop. We had a broadcaster from the Ticket Radio Dallas who was watching the film on his laptop at home, prepping to do a bit on the film the next day, and his 14-year-old son walks by and sees the computer and goes, "Oh, you're watching Jump Shot, Dad?" No lie. So it's like the way that Kenny's story transcends. We know what sport transcends, right? We know that it's able to reach things, but there's something about, that Americana that Kenny embodied, and I think even beyond Americana, embodying the human race is what a real personality and a real true character stands for, lives for, strives for, and invests in, is just so important. And I think, Russ, all those things you touched in are just right there. It's just incredible. I think we have Kelly, Kenny's granddaughter, who is in the film, I think is going to join us pretty soon, which Kelly has become just a dear friend to Jake and I over the years, and members of our film, and something that we just absolutely adore. And obviously she's incredible in the film and has incredible stories about her grandfather. So I think she's going to join us soon. We did have a question that I think is really good from Guillermo that asked, did Kenny get to see any clips, Jake?
Yeah, so obviously Kenny saw the short film because we completed that in 2012, and he loved that. We did screen at one point in time. We had what we would call a rough assembly of the film. It was probably 4 hours in length or whatnot, and we watched about an hour of that together. So we basically made it through, probably 3/4 of the way through his college career, I'd say, if you're looking at it from a film perspective, just because we had made, it was just much more dense into the details of that. So we got to see that. But beyond that, no, he didn't see the completed film, and it was a very rough version. I will say something that was really cool was at his memorial service, his family asked for permission to be able to screen the short film on the Jumbotron at the Arena Auditorium, which was really special, that, and meant a lot that they wanted to do that, just because they felt like it represented, their father, their grandfather so well. And so that was something that was just unbelievable. And obviously, they didn't need to ask our permission to do that. And it was a really, really incredible moment.
Well, before Kelly joins us, I want to throw this over to Mary Beth, because I really, truly think that one of the most important themes in Kenny's story is the fact that he was empowering female athletes at a time when men, especially men in the sports world, really could have probably cared less about investing in female athletes, unless maybe they were a coach, for a female college or high school or junior high team. And I think, this is an incredible piece of the film. And I know, Mary Beth, that it really impacted you. Can you just kind of share your thoughts and just how that impacted you as a part of Kenny's story as well, and what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. It filled out later, but in the original rough cut that I saw of the film, why I felt so compelled and wanted to join Jake and you and everybody on the journey of making what is jump shot, was because of who Kenny was. And after I saw the film, I just had tears streaming down my face. And I just thought, that's what a man is supposed to be like. That is what a man is supposed to be like. And one of the elements is that at every turn, the women in his life, he saw as equals, and he saw as someone that he wanted to use his power, his influence, anything he had to elevate them. You know, whether it was choosing the health of his wife over his own fame or fortune, his career, and then taking the sport of basketball, making it so that women can play it all across the state of Alaska. The parts of the film where I cry the most are when I hear from those women and they talk about how Kenny saw something to develop in them. You know, I was a lousy basketball player, but Kenny saw something in me. And I think, as a woman, I remember the coaches I had who taught me to play basketball. And when I first started playing basketball, it was 6-on-6. I was half court. We played only one half of the court, and we had to throw it across the half court line. Like Nancy Lieberman says in the film, you know, I guess they didn't think we could run. We would get too tired or something. But so I just can't say enough about who he was. A pioneer for women. And we needed that. And we still need that in lots of ways. And so I just can't say enough about who Kenny is and how inspiring it is and how I want every man I know to be like Kenny.
David, you're a father of girls. How does this speak to you as well? The same question with Mary Beth, as you know, as a dad who has daughters.
Yeah, you know what? I would take it even a step further, Ty. And yes, I am a girl dad without a doubt, and I'm happy to be a girl dad. But I think, you know, first and foremost, I internalize the message too, and I don't need to be 20 years old and developing to do that. I can still develop at 60. And I would agree with Mary Beth. This is what a man is supposed to be. And yes, obviously, as a father of girls, and one of my girls is a competitive athlete on the national level. But that's terrific. But I don't think there was anything self-serving with that. Kenny is one of those guys who just did what you want to do, and it does. If we're not all looking in the mirror and saying, "Am I living up to that standard?" You know, shame on us, man, woman, or child. So yeah, I absolutely. Nancy's a dear friend of mine, as you know, and I know she was, she was very moved by that, watching my own daughters react to it. But I also, my wife, who, you know, I tease her often. She'll come in and stare at the TV when I have a game on, and for about 40 seconds, and she'll say, "Baseball?" And if she got it right, she's impressed with herself. So she has no sports ethos at all. But Kenny spoke to her just as much for what he was as a man, and certainly a part of that is I don't want to minimize, Mary Beth, what he meant to, the female athletes. Obviously, it's tremendously important, and I've been in that my whole life as well. But there's just the whole ethos of what Kenny is really, I just what Mary Beth says, what a man should be.
I love, we just got a comment from Missy and Asher Wood that said, our son Marlon, 6 years old, was so inspired by the film, he wanted to shoot hoops right afterwards. He felt empowered to be creative with plays and keep practicing, even though he's one of the smallest in his class. I mean, if that doesn't just like define like what Kenny can do for any age, I mean, I don't know what does. And I think, you know, the thing about this story is obviously basketball is like the core piece of it, right? And Kenny did something that is so like otherworldly as far as like developing something that totally changes a game, like a foundational game, and takes it from one thing to the next in this future timeline. It's something that is very rare. I mean, you look throughout history at innovators, like innovators are very rare. There's handfuls of them. It's not like this huge, throw a bunch of grains of sand and you go find an innovator. It's like, no, it's like you can hold this little group of rocks in your hand. But the awesome thing about this film is that this man that created this thing, like, that's just part of his life. There were so many things, as we talk about in the film, that were more important to Kenny than this game he played. And he states it in the film that, you know, sure, this was a platform that I guess I got, you know, to be able to share the things that I care about to a wider audience of people, but I'm nobody special. Like, I live for something greater. There are things more important to me. I'm not a special guy. And, you know, acts of humility do way more than acts of no humility, you know, in life. And I think it's pretty cool to, I know for us as a team, it is so cool to be able to tell a story about an athlete who is a Hall of Fame caliber athlete that cared more about people and life and everything else than the game. His wife, his daughters, his grandkids, the kids he coached. I mean, we're getting pictures like by the minute of people with their kids who are 8, 10, 12-year-olds huddled around Kenny Sailors at the University of Wyoming because these kids had to meet this guy. You know what I mean? And Kenny took the time. I mean, KD says it perfectly in the film when he goes, when I'm 80 years old, I'm not going to a basketball gym and watching kids play basketball. I think he will, because I think that's the man KD is becoming. But I will say, like, most guys at his caliber aren't 80 years old and going to go hang out and watch a girls' basketball game in Cheyenne over the weekend. It just doesn't happen. But this man just, I mean, it's, you all know, if you watch the film, you know how incredible this guy is. His first smile, you're in. You're like, oh my gosh, it's my grandfather. Or it's the grandfather I wish I had. Or, you know, that first smile, you're locked in and you believe. And I think that's something that is just so special for all of us to be able to take away from this. And I know our team does. And Coach Mo, I think you can really speak to that even more. I mean, what has this done for you as a coach and as a leader working with basketball players and coaches all around the country?
Oh my, I didn't think you were going to ask me that question. I just wanted to say that that one of the striking moments in the film was when KD just said, "That's pure love." He was talking about KD, and he said, "Right there, that's pure love," and that was extremely touching to me, and I think it encapsulates what you just spoke about just a minute ago. Now, I even forget the question that you asked, and maybe you should just keep moving here. I know there's some good questions coming up on chats.
It's a perfect segue.
That's a perfect segue for Kelly. Hi, Kelly. Can you hear us?
Hey, Kelly.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. I mean, this is pretty incredible right now, everybody, that I know you guys saw Kelly in the film, one of Kenny's granddaughters. And I mean, Kelly, we've just been in here just raving about, you know, how much fun we had as a team telling your grandfather's story. And that, you know, I know for most of us, and especially for Jake, and then myself, like, we really just feel like we're part of your guys' family. And all of the people that are connected to your grandfather, you know, were like this echo of what he stood for and welcomed us in and loved us. And I mean, what did the film do for you as the granddaughter? You know, to you, he's grandpa. You know, I mean, how was this experience for you and been able to watch the film?
Well, in short, I feel like y'all have given our family just a huge gift. Everyone dreams of having this godly father figure in their lives to influence their family, and everyone wants to be immortal. And I feel like he's kind of, I mean, it's going to be sacrilegious, but it like immortalizes him in a way, which is ironic because at the end of his life, he's like, I don't care about statues. I just, you know, you think you become very focused and on what is truly important for him. But I feel like we have this forever, and it's such a gift, and I just appreciate so much. And I just wanted to say two things. And again, you guys have taken kind of steps of faith to do this, because man, 8 years of work and not seeing a lot, and then man, it's just so wonderful now. So thank you so much for all of your work on that. I just remembered like a few seconds ago, I was like, holy smokes, years ago, before grandma got, right when she was getting sick, I got this movie called Life Stories, and I thought, oh great, we'll have these stories to pass on and remember why grandma's still healthy and everything. And one of them was for grandpa, and it was, what do you want most to give to future generations? And I remember specifically, he said, I want to pass on the truth to people who come after me. That's all he said. And I'm thinking, wow, that is amazing. He got his wish, and you guys were the vessel for that. And I so appreciate that. That is amazing. So that just popped in my head, and I was like, wow, that's wonderful. And also, we were going through stuff of his that I had never seen before, and I so wish I had been able to give this gift to him when he was still living. But it was a book, and I was looking for it. I know it's somewhere amidst around here, but it's about this big, and it's from his mother, whom, like we talked about at the premiere, Jake. He had a fabulous relationship, great deal of respect for her and his influence in his life. His wife and his mother were huge for him, but wonderful stories with her. But she did a ton of writing, and she wrote this little book called The Secret of Happiness, and it was to my son Kenneth, and in her own handwriting, and it had all these wonderful little stories and sayings, and some of the things that he said to this, that he would always say that you guys would recognize, like laugh and the world laughs with you, weep and you weep alone, basically have a positive attitude, move on, don't go wallowing in your self-pity. And it was just so wonderful to see that. And I wish I was able to give it to you before this, Jake. I just saw it, and Grandpa probably hadn't for years. But anyway, so thank you guys so much. It was an absolute treasure. It will be a treasure forever, not only for our family, but for many, many, many others, and yourself included. So thank you for your dedication to that. You guys are amazing.
Well, Kelly, thank you for opening up, your time with your family and welcoming a stranger in your home. I remember I flew to Alaska. We had never met in person, and you guys put myself and another crew member up in your the fishing hut that you guys have down by the river, and it was an amazing week for us. We loved it. And I also want to say you made a pretty tremendous effort to get to come to one of our premieres at South by Southwest. You were in Texas, I believe, because your daughter goes to school here. She's also an amazing athlete as well, which it seems to come along with the family. You drove all the way to Austin, Texas to see a screening of your grandfather's film. And I want to know what was that experience like for you, and was there anything that you learned about your grandfather watching the film?
Oh boy, I don't know that. I mean, there were a couple little details in his life, maybe. I can't remember right off the top of my head, but like you said, he was such an integrated person that he was truly who he was on the film. So there weren't a lot of surprises that way. A couple little details maybe that I didn't know. But what I remember the most, and I mean, I was in Alabama for work, hopped over to see Brianna, and I was going to miss it by one day. And I was like, one day. But because of the popularity, there's an extra day. So I got to see it, and was just, what a gift. I mean, I think it was an 8-hour drive, but what a beautiful day to be able to see him again and hear his voice and hear Grandma. And it was one of the most fabulous days of my life, I think. So yeah, specifically, I can't remember. It just all was surreal and wonderful, wonderful moment.
Yeah.
So.
Well, thank you.
Well, we've
glad you made it.
We've got a few minutes left here before we're closing off the call. And I just want to address something real quick, because I know we're getting a ton of Hall of Fame questions. And I want to tell you, I've been really purposeful to not talk about the Hall of Fame on this call. And there's a really big reason for that, because at the end of the day, if you watch the movie, you know that Kenny could care less about the Hall of Fame. Kenny cared about his family, his neighbors, his community, his friends, and he even says it, sure, I'm a human, it'd be great, but at the end of the day, I live for a better Hall of Fame. Not the Hall of Fames these men make, but the Hall of Fames that matter to him up there. And I just want to say, we obviously as a team, sure, we'd love to see Kenny be in the Hall of Fame, just like all of his friends, just like everybody else, but we purposely don't want to put all of our effort into talking about Kenny not being in the Hall of Fame, because, yes, that would be a great thing. But at the end of the day, Kenny's story and the way he lived and who he was as a person is so much bigger than his picture on a plaque on a domed wall. And I think if the message of Kenny's story can be that more than anything, that we can live for things greater than things that sit in a building or on a wall somewhere, we can influence and touch so many more people's lives. And that was Kenny's focus. Kenny's focus was, I mean, we have people that are on the chat that coached young junior high teams and high school teams that Kenny would go and watch their games right now. And that impact is far greater for all of those kids. And I know Troy is on the chat right now and listening in, and Troy couldn't make the funeral with his girls basketball team because there was a huge snowstorm and they couldn't make it. And that devastated them. Why? Not because Kenny, was in the Hall of Fame, because this man showed up to their games and drove to watch them play and spent time with these girls. I mean, it's just, that speaks so far greater of a person and so far greater of any innovation, any accolades on a basketball court that could ever happen. And I think I just want to let the people know that are, asking questions, that's the reason why that we're not really talking about it in this, because we're honoring Kenny. And I think we tried to do that the best with the film as well, and really honor Kenny and his story. And man, Troy, we wish that you could have been there with us at the memorial service, because it was beautiful. And I know that your girls on your team would have absolutely loved to be there too. And we were there with you guys in spirit. And I know Kenny was with your team in spirit as well. So I just want to say, Jake, do you want to have any last words before I close us out tonight? And Kelly, thank you so much for being on. Like, it means the world. I mean, we love your family. We obviously love your grandfather. Jake, do you have anything before I close this out that you want to add?
Oh man. I mean, I'm so thankful for the team that has come alongside me, cast and crew, to make this possible. I mean, I'll say, like, I mean, it all started with Kenny, an amazing man. And I think through Kenny, we've been able to build an amazing team. Good people attract good people. And so I appreciate each and every one of you. Because there is absolutely no way that I would have done this on my own. Like, it's just not even possible. Like, it's not even fathomable, honestly. And so, cheers to you, to all of you, and to everyone else that is not on the screen right now, that made that possible. Because there were a lot of hands that came together to make this happen. And I wish we were in a packed theater right now, again, to share this and have this Q&A with everybody. But in a way, this is more special because I think we're reaching more people than we would have in a single theater in a random city somewhere. So to everybody out there that's listening right now, thank you so much for not only just watching our film, but supporting our film. And I hope that you found some new life and a new perspective of life by watching that. We're inspired by Kenny and the man he was and the legacy that's living behind, that he was living. And I hope you strive to continue to be as best as you can be and live for something bigger than yourself. Because Kenny, people argue that Kenny defined the game of basketball by contributing the jump shot. Well, we know it's a modern day jump shot, but the game never defined who he was. And that's something that I always strive for myself. Now that I've got to spend time with Kenny, is that it's an incredible lesson to walk away with. And so, yeah, I mean, this is great. We're getting to celebrate his life. This has been just such a joy to get to share this with all of you. So thank you all so much. All love in the world to everybody there.
Just so everybody knows, due to popular demand, we have extended the online screening of Jump Shot for one more day. So we are going into overtime. This is just like Kenny's national championship game. We're going into overtime. And so we are going to make it available tomorrow, Sunday, as well. So if anybody rents tomorrow, they'll still have a 48-hour window to watch when they rent tomorrow. So please get on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Let all your friends know and family that haven't seen it. Tell them about Kenny's story. Tell them they have one more day. Jumpshotmovie.com is the link. Really easy. that will send them to the rental page. And guys, we can't even tell you how grateful we are for everybody's support out there that is watching. Just like Doug Mader said, the world needs more Kenny Sailors. We absolutely agree. And I want to just give a special message to Wyoming and Alaska. We absolutely do want to come and show Jump Shot in a theater once all the COVID-19 stuff slows down. We don't know when that is, but we 100% are going to come to Wyoming. We want to come to Alaska and bring them film to a theater so that we can actually be there in person and share the movie with Kenny's communities, because they mean the world to Kenny. They mean the world to us. And man, he loved his Wyoming and his Alaska. So thank you, everybody. Jump Shot team, you guys are amazing. You gals are amazing. We absolutely love you. Follow our social media, and we will, as we progress over the next month, we will let you know on our plans for other release opportunities and things. We don't know what's going to happen yet, and we're working on all that. So just pay attention, and we will let you know. If you have more questions, ask us on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, and we'll happily answer them. So on behalf of the Jump Shot team and Kenny, we love you all. Thank you for being a part, and we will talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.